This is going to be a little bit of an education alongside a showpiece, so buckle up and sit back. On the left is an iPad, and on the right is a COLOR Kaleido 3 e-reader. So basically these are both tablets, but this is essentially an e-reader that uses ink, uses electronic ink. This is an LCD LED tablet. You will see how it is completely different the way they refresh. Look at that. It is not fluid at all on here. This is going to be a kind of 101 introduction to everything. If you guys have an iPad and you've been seeing these floating around, the Kaleido 3 or Color ebook readers or e-readers in general, you might be wondering, what are they for? What are they? Why are they here? Well, basically, this is a overclocked and advanced Kindle. So you don't need a glow light. With the glow light off, in fact, you can see it quite well. Also, devices like this don't have glare. You can see they diffuse all the light. They don't have any glare whatsoever. This is essentially a mirror. You'll see our studio lights in the shot right there. They are completely reflective. You can even see me potentially in there as well. Now, also, these are refreshing in different ways. For example, this unit, an e-paper unit, needs to refresh its entire screen real estate. It has to drop all the particles to the ground, bring them back up, and for it to be physical little microcapsules filled with ink particles, for it to be that quick is just nothing short of a miracle. But it does require refresh in order for it to work properly. You can put a fast mode on this device, and not all devices, but some have them, in which case it will get a little bit quicker. You can bounce between things, you get a little bit more fluidity, whereas this is always ready to go. In fact, you don't notice it, but this is flickering anywhere between, or an LCD LED screen is flickering anywhere between 20 to 240 times a second. You just can't see it, but that's why as you move it around, you can move it micrometers, fractions of millimeters, and it's always ready, and everything changes in tandem. But that just doesn't happen on this. But I will tell you right now, when it comes to e-readers versus tablets, when you're looking at this right now, if I were to turn the Wi-Fi off, this will last until the dinosaurs come back, because it doesn't use energy. All of these elements on the screen, they're not doing anything. It will stain like that. It'll last a year, and it'll just look like that forever. This will say, oh, you're running out of batteries. It's 1%, and it'll say shutting down. That's what will happen on this. It doesn't happen on e-paper. There are certain devices that have system UI elements that trigger shutdowns and stuff, but typically the way the screens work, that things like this and your cell phone, they will use battery regardless of the state. You say, well, what about turning down all of the glow lights and everything? You can do that, but now it's just darker. You're still using battery. You're still using energy. All of these devices are the exact same. Also, you might be saying, well, I charge my tablet every day. I charge my phone every day. You're right. These have to be charged under regular daily use, full day, about once a day. And even if you say, I only charge mine once every 2 days, sure, but at the end of the day, you're still at 37%, 16%, whereas this will last months, depending on how you use it. You will never drain an Onyx device in a day. It's not possible. You can drain it by 15-20%. If you were to use this straight up for 13 hours straight without going to the washroom, without eating food, without sleeping, sure, you could maybe get it down. But e-paper works in a way in that this will last weeks, days, weeks, and months. This will only ever last days, if not day. So that's kind of that out of the way. So let's just go to the web browser to show you guys how everything looks when you go to Safari on this, or you go to a regular web browser on this. So I'm sure this is what we're all used to seeing. Fluid video, we have our Instagram feeds, we have YouTube, that's what's going on with that. You might be wondering, okay, well that looks very good, that looks like what I'm used to. What about an e-reader? Well, let's play them side by side to show you what they look like. You'll see how slow this is, but you might not notice it, but that is incredible. This is a very, very fast device. In fact, Onyx, the one you're looking at right now, is typically a very quick experience. It will never be as fluid as that. It just can't be. That's not the way e-paper works. This can run upwards of 120 hertz. This just can't do that. This can do 60 FPS. This just can't do that. Sitting at around 20 to 30 frames per second on the high. So unfortunately, it will never look like this. It'll never have that kind of fluidity like a newscaster camera. But this is paper, remember everybody. This is not using anywhere near the amount of battery life as this is. This will last so much longer. Now, granted, it doesn't look good. Well, I'm going to make it look better. I'm going to go into HD mode. Don't do that, because now it's unwatchable. Because what the e-ink device is trying to do is create a full, high-quality HD frame every 30 times a second, and it just can't do it. It can't do it. So there's a trade-off. You go to an extreme mode or an ultra-fast mode, in which case you get that fluidity. There's nothing lost by the human mind when you're watching this versus watching this. You won't miss anything. You say, okay, I'm looking over there, I'm looking at the wheel, now I see a bumper. You retain all that information. When it's choppy in HD mode, you're not retaining that information. And you also might be asking, does this have audio? Yes, it does. It does have speakers. It has to be the right color. It has to be ODD. So, you do have stereo speakers. Now, these are both tablets, everyone. This is not an e-book reader. We call it an e-reader because it's the most synonymous kind of thing. This is a tablet. In fact, this has higher specs than some tablets in the game. Some Android tablets by major manufacturers like Asus and Acer and stuff like that. This is a tablet for all intents and purposes. But the difference is that the actual screen panel inside the housing is e-paper. They bought it from a company called E-Ink. These guys buy it from whoever makes LCD LED panels. You might also be looking at the top battery, and you can really kind of reference. I believe we were at 18% at the top end of this video, and we've only lost 1% on this versus 5% on this. So it is massively escalating the battery drain on an iPad versus an e-paper driven device. Now, one thing that we excel at here at Goody Reader is notes, because we have been in the note-taking game for some time. Now, just for the sake of making this look better, to keep it fair, we're going to try our best to make this as beautiful as possible for the colors. There we go, a little bit of a blue light cut. So you'll be thinking, well, how does this work with colors? This is a black and white e-reader with a color array filter on top. So this particular unit does have color. You can do pinks, you can do blues, you can do browns, you can do yellows, and it will all come across on here. You can choose your pens up top, you can do some shapes on the side, you can grab a very thick brush and make these beautiful blue colors, and it looks great. It's never going to look as good as this, because this looks so good. And you know what? I actually think you need to snap this to the side to trigger the pencil. You do. Okay, so now that the pencil's intact, you can move it around like this. It's never gonna look as good as a tablet, and that's because this thing is ready for you. It's always ready and rock rolling to go. But the downside is, this uses an Apple Pencil, and it doesn't come with the unit, which means you have to spend upwards of $100 to get this, whereas all Wacom note-taking enabled e-readers will have a pen. It'll either come with the unit, or they're very cheap and widespread. For example, I can get a cheapo absolute garbage pen for $1, or I can get a high-end German-made Lamy for $100, and everything in between. Mitsubishi made out of real wood. I can get a Big Me one that has a laser pointer at the back. I mean, the options are endless when it comes to Wacom-driven e-book readers, but you can't use it on an iPad. You can only use the included Apple Pencil, unfortunately, and that thing is very expensive. The tips wear down, and if you lose it, well, you're pretty much out because you can't do any more note-taking. Whereas this is a dime a dozen. You get these little tiny nibs that you replace at the back. So let's just do some note-taking right now. Well, I did a lot of notes here. That feels terrible. It doesn't feel good at all because it feels like I'm writing on a piece of glass. You know why? Because I'm writing on a piece of glass. That's what's happening here. That is logistically my current reality, is that I'm writing on a piece of glass with a piece of plastic. That's it. That's the end of the story. Onyx takes a little bit of a different approach. They have a layer on top that gives you a little bit of a realistic feel compared to the iPad. Compared to anything in the industry, this actually falls short. There are devices that feel like you're writing on actual 8.5 by 11 printer paper. This one doesn't quite, but we can still have a good time with it. We can choose a dark gray, really thick pencil and say, pencil, notes. This is great. And yeah, it feels better than the iPad, but still, this thing actually falls short within competitors in its own scope. So I hope this kind of gives you guys a little bit of an idea between iPad style tablets, just the inherent basic understanding of a tablet, the way it works, the way it moves, and an e-book reader with a color screen, because these have been around for quite some time. They've actually been around since 2009, e-ink Color. And e-ink Color note-taking on a large screen has been around only for 3 years since the Big Me. They've been the only device to have a large screen, and now Onyx is catching up. Everyone else is, there's a lot of manufacturers in the scope. There's major manufacturers in e-readers like Amazon, of course, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Fujitsu, Sony, Lenovo, Huawei, everyone Philips has a brand new monitor. So there's huge multi-billion dollar companies that use e-paper screens. And you might also be worried about price. Yes, e-paper is very expensive. Everyone and their mom makes LCD tablets, LED screen panels that you can buy for a dime a dozen. E-paper all comes from literally one company on planet Earth, e-ink, so it ends up being more expensive. If you want to spend your money, you got to kind of know what you're getting. Checking this again, checking the roll, 74%. Out of this entire video, I think we lost 2%, whereas this, we've lost 6. So it's 3 times the drain in a short amount of time. For GoodyReader.com, this is Peter.